In February 2021, amidst the cold and gloomy backdrop of Scotland during the COVID-19 pandemic, Benny-Lyn Linden and her 2-year-old daughter, Jellica, mysteriously disappeared. The bodies of the mother and daughter were later found buried beneath the kitchen floor of a house in the town of Dundee. What the police uncovered was not just evidence of a murder, but traces of an unspeakable atrocity. Both were raped, murdered, and their bodies dismembered before being buried under cold concrete. The murderer, Andrew Innans, was a man with a scholarly and successful appearance, known for his achievements in the tech industry. But behind this polished facade, he was a monster disguised as a man. You are about to delve into a true story. Let's uncover the dark secrets and gripping details you've never heard before. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel as we explore today's case. The main figure in this case, Benny-Lyn Burke, was born in 1995 in Quezon, one of the most populous cities in the Philippines. She grew up in a family with 3 siblings. Due to financial difficulties, Benny-Lyn was the only one in her family who could afford to attend university. In 2015, Benny-Lyn met Lexington, a British man 40 years her senior, through a dating app. Lexington lived in Scotland, and despite the vast geographical distance, their love blossomed through daily conversations. Their relationship quickly progressed. In 2018, Benny-Lyn and Lexington held a wedding ceremony on Samar Island, Philippines. A month later, their daughter, Jellica, was born, doubling the family's joy. However, at this time, Benny-Lyn had not yet completed the paperwork to move to the UK with her husband. In August 2019, Benny-Lyn finally moved to the UK to reunite with her husband in the town of Bristol. The initial days were challenging, but Benny-Lyn's resourcefulness and intelligence helped her adapt quickly. She excelled not only as a mother, but also worked at a care home to earn extra income. Benny-Lyn even sent money back home to support her family in the Philippines. But such happy days didn't last long. Benny-Lyn and Lexington's marital life began to show cracks. Lexington became controlling and cold, unlike the early days of their relationship. This led Benny-Lyn to decide to leave her husband and move with her daughter to a small apartment on the outskirts of Bristol. Life as a single mother wasn't easy, but Benny-Lyn was determined not to give up custody of her daughter. She maintained close contact with her family in the Philippines, especially her sister. Every day, they spoke on the phone, sharing life's joys and struggles. This connection became a source of motivation for Benny-Lyn to navigate her challenging days. In 2021, after finalizing her divorce, Benny-Lyn began seeking new opportunities in love. She joined a dating site where she met Andrew Innans, a software engineer living in the town of Dundee, Scotland. Andrew, a 50-year-old man, came across as polite and caring. He had a past of being divorced and was living alone in Scotland. Benny-Lyn was drawn to his maturity and the promise of a bright future he painted. After days of online conversations, she decided to visit Scotland with her daughter Jellica, and Andrew promised to pick them up. On February 18, 2021, Benny-Lyn and Jellica got into Andrew's car and left Bristol. During the journey, she joyfully video-called her sister, sharing that she and her daughter were having a great trip. But that was the last time Benny-Lyn's sister saw her. The following day, February 19th, Benny-Lyn and Jellica disappeared. Benny-Lyn's small apartment in Bristol fell silent. Lexington, Benny-Lyn's ex-husband, came to visit but found no one home. Benny-Lyn's sister in the Philippines repeatedly called, but there was no response. On February 20th, 2021, Benny-Lyn's sister received a message from an unknown number. The sender, identifying himself as Andrew, "Are you Benny-Lyn's sister?" Benny-Lyn met a man at a cafe. They might have met through a dating app. She and her daughter Jellica went to Glasgow with him. The message shocked Benny-Lyn's sister. She immediately replied, "Really? But why isn't Benny-Lyn answering calls? What did she say about this?" Andrew explained that Benny-Lyn and her ex-husband had numerous disputes over child custody, and fearing the police or others might search for her, she decided to turn off her phone and flee. Andrew's explanation didn't convince Benny-Lyn's sister. She thought, if my sister had such a plan, she would have told me beforehand. Trusting her instincts, she asked directly, "Is my sister still alive?" Andrew replied calmly, "Scotland is a very peaceful place, with no crimes. Don't worry, Benny-Lyn is safe." But when she pressed further, asking, "Are you sure? What happened to my sister?" Andrew stopped responding. Andrew's silence only amplified Benny-Lynn's sister's worries. To reassure her, Andrew unexpectedly sent a short video showing Benny-Lynn smiling. However, upon closer inspection, Benny-Lynn's sister realized the video appeared to have been recorded a long time ago and didn't align with the present timeline. After receiving the video, Benny-Lynn's sister attempted to message and call Andrew, but received no response. She waited patiently for 2 weeks, hoping Benny-Lynn would reach out. However, all efforts were in vain. Both Benny-Lynn and Andrew had vanished without a trace. On March 1st, 2021, unable to endure any longer, Benny-Lynn's sister decided to report her missing to the local police in Dundee, Scotland. Upon receiving the case, Scottish police immediately launched an investigation. However, they faced a significant hurdle. Benny-Lynn's sister had limited information about Andrew, knowing only his name and that he lived in Dundee. There was no address or any specific lead. Based on information provided by Benny-Lynn's sister, police discovered that Benny-Lynn and her daughter Jellica had left Bristol on February 18, 2021, with a man. They reviewed all traffic cameras along the route from Bristol to Dundee. After tireless efforts, they identified a suspicious car on video. Initial investigations revealed that the vehicle was registered to Andrew Innans, a 52-year-old man living in Dundee. Police promptly located Andrew's house at 21 Troon Avenue. When officers knocked on the door, Andrew slightly opened it and said, "My daughter is taking a bath and needs to get dressed. You can't come in right now." His furtive gaze and unusual demeanor aroused suspicion. Through the door gap, they spotted a child lying on a mattress in the living room. The surrounding furniture was disorganized, and the kitchen appeared unusually messy. Detecting suspicious signs, the police warned Andrew to cooperate and entered the house. Upon entering, they immediately noticed the irregularities. The furniture was chaotic and disorganized. In the living room, an old mattress lay in the middle of the floor, surrounded by scattered personal belongings. The kitchen area raised further suspicions. Part of the floor had recently been tiled, with fresh cement still visible. Nearby were construction tools, including a cement mixer, tiles, and a bucket of concrete. In the house, apart from Andrew, the police also discovered a 7-year-old girl trembling on the mattress in the living room. The girl identified herself as Emma. Her frightened demeanor and silence made police suspect she was a captive victim. When directly questioned about Benny-Lynn and Jellica, Andrew tried to maintain his composure and refused to answer. However, when interrogated about the unusual renovations in the kitchen and living room, under direct pressure from investigators, Andrew confessed, "I killed them. Benny-Lynn and Jellica are under the kitchen floor. I poured concrete over them." Andrew's cold confession stunned the officers present. He showed no remorse or regret, speaking as if it were a routine matter. In reality, he admitted guilt, knowing he couldn't evade conviction once the police delved deeper into the investigation. It is rare for a criminal to confess upon first contact with law enforcement. Excavating the kitchen area was no simple task. Police collaborated with forensic experts, archaeologists, and engineers to ensure the bodies weren't further damaged. The entire process took over 2 weeks, shocking the local community. On March 19th, the body of Jellica was the first to be found, buried under less than 1 meter of concrete. The 2-year-old girl's tiny body was interred with mud and cement. This heartbreaking discovery brought the investigation team to tears. Further excavation uncovered Benny-Lynn's body beneath Jellica. The 25-year-old mother's dismembered remains were wrapped in a nylon bag and covered with a blanket, showing bruises that indicated the violent abuse she endured before her death. Autopsy results revealed Benny-Lynn had a deep wound of 158 millimeters in her chest and several severe head injuries. Forensic scientists determined the cause of death was a combination of internal bleeding and forceful blows from a heavy object. Police immediately connected these findings to evidence seized at the scene. A 1.5 kilograms hammer found in Andrew's house had traces of the victim's blood. This was the weapon used to assault Benny-Lynn. Additionally, a kitchen knife was identified as the tool Andrew used to dismember the victim's body. Both victims' bodies showed signs of sexual assault. Police also discovered numerous used condoms at the scene. Later investigations confirmed Emma was not Andrew's daughter. She was another victim, abducted 2 weeks prior to fulfill his depraved desires. During interrogation, when asked why he murdered the mother and daughter, Andrew initially remained silent. He later offered a brazen explanation. Benny-Lynn continued communicating with other men through dating apps. I couldn't tolerate her deceit. He admitted that his initial plan was to spend a weekend with Benny-Lynn and Angelica, but jealousy and rage drove him to act violently. However, his statement was dismissed by the police as the evidence showed clear signs of premeditation. Andrew confessed to using a hammer to attack Benny-Lynn in a fit of anger. After she collapsed, he continued to use a samurai sword to inflict additional injuries. These actions proved that his intent was not only to kill, but also to desecrate the victim's body. Regarding Angelica, Andrew stated, "The girl wouldn't stop crying for her mother. I couldn't bear the sound." He admitted to killing her after 3 days of captivity. Andrew meticulously planned everything from inviting Benny-Lynn and Angelica to his home, purchasing construction tools, to concealing his crimes beneath a layer of concrete. Why did he commit such heinous acts? Let's delve deeper into the nature of this killer. Andrew Ki.llings, 52 years old, was born in Germany. He had no criminal record and was considered a talented programmer. He moved to Dice, Scotland, at the age of 24 to study and later graduated from the University of Aberdeen. After graduation, Andrew began his career at Rockstar North, a prestigious gaming company. With his design and programming skills, he quickly became a key employee and a respected figure in the company. In the early 2000s, Andrew married a Japanese woman, and the family moved to Japan. They had 3 children. However, the marriage began to fall apart. Andrew and his wife divorced in 2019. After the separation, he returned to Scotland, living alone in a secluded house in Dundee. This marked the beginning of his descent into darkness. As an exceptional programmer, Andrew used his skills to create a sophisticated software program. This program was designed to collect data from 34 dating websites, specifically targeting women's profiles. He outlined the criteria for his ideal woman in an Excel spreadsheet. This spreadsheet later became crucial evidence, providing insight into the motives and methods of the perpetrator during the police investigation. He didn't care about the women's age, profession, or appearance. What obsessed him was whether they had young children. Andrew admitted in his testimony that his true intention was not to abuse the women, but to access their children. He pretended to care, engage in conversations, and build relationships with single mothers solely to get close to their children. Benny-Lynn unknowingly became the perfect target when Andrew discovered her profile. He meticulously planned to lure her to his home in Scotland. This wasn't the first time he had committed such acts, but it was the most extreme case leading to horrific crimes. Andrew's actions were likened to a wolf in sheep's clothing, using intelligence and technology to hunt his prey. His meticulous planning left the victims unaware until they were trapped in his deadly snare. On January 31, 2023, the trial of Andrew Ki.llings officially began at the High Court in Edinburgh, Scotland. The atmosphere in the courtroom was tense as the gruesome details of the case were revealed to the public for the first time. The courtroom was packed with people, including reporters, curious citizens, and the victim's family. Benny-Lynn's sister traveled thousands of miles from the Philippines to witness the perpetrator face justice. Prosecutors opened with a short video showing Benny-Lynn and Angelica in happier times, creating a poignant contrast to the heinous crimes Andrew committed. Forensic experts presented their findings on Angelica's cause of death, revealing that the girl had been suffocated after enduring 3 days of Andrew's horrific abuse. Another critical piece of evidence was CCTV footage from a supermarket, showing Andrew purchasing construction materials like cement bags and tiles shortly after committing the crime. This reinforced the premeditated nature of his actions. Andrew sat at the defendant's dock with an eerily calm demeanor. When questioned about his motive for the murders, he insisted that he acted in self-defense and that Benny-Lynn's death was an unfortunate accident. However, prosecutors refuted this claim by presenting testimony from Emma, the surviving victim. Emma recounted in detail how Andrew had assaulted her and used a samurai sword to kill Benny-Lin in her presence. He then concealed the bodies of Benny-Lin and Angelica under a layer of concrete. Emma's testimony left the courtroom in silence. Prosecutors highlighted the psychological trauma inflicted on the child, emphasizing that Andrew not only committed these crimes but also deliberately inflicted irrevocable pain on an innocent child. Andrew continued to offer excuses, even claiming that he acted under hallucinations caused by medication and had no control over his actions. However, psychiatric experts dismissed these claims, asserting that he was fully aware of his behavior. Another shocking piece of evidence was the Excel file Andrew used to list potential targets from dating websites. Prosecutors concluded that Andrew was not just a murderer, but a depraved predator. He exploited intelligence and technology to prey on vulnerable single mothers, aiming to access their children. On February 6, 2023, the court convicted Andrew Ki.llings of 2 counts of murder and child abuse. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 36 years. Andrew was escorted out of court amid the angry shouts of the Scottish public. He continued to smile coldly, showing no signs of remorse. Following the trial, Scottish police announced support for Emma and Benny-Lin's family to help them recover emotionally and reintegrate into society. Due to privacy concerns, Emma's name used in the video is a pseudonym. Her details were not disclosed. Nonetheless, the 7-year-old girl displayed immense courage by recounting the perpetrator's crimes. The Andrew Ki.llings case has concluded, but its echoes remain, serving as a stark reminder that darkness can exist anywhere, even in places that appear most peaceful. This video has come to an end. Thank you for following this gripping story. If you found this video intriguing, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to catch more captivating stories. In England, the murderer Mary Bell coldly killed 2 victims aged 3 and 4 just to seek attention. Cases like this might not be shocking to people anymore, but there is one key difference in this case. The murderer was only 11 years old. You heard that right, only 11 years old, but Mary Bell knew how to create an alibi with her innocent appearance, and the method of her killings was no different from that of serial killers. This is a true story that took place in England in 1968, with intriguing and captivating details that you've probably never heard before. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel to explore this case with us right now. The setting of the story: Newcastle, located in the northeast of England. White House Road, where Mary Bell grew up, is a forgotten area on the edge of the land. The 19th century red brick houses with broken windows and walls covered in moss give off a gloomy and unsettling atmosphere. It is a place where children run freely amidst the ruins, but also a place where dark secrets are buried. Our main character, Mary Bell, was born and raised in a small house on White House Road. Her mother, Betty, gave birth to her at the age of 16. Betty was a young woman who worked as a prostitute and frequently left the house. She lacked maternal skills, and having a child was an unfortunate accident. As a result, she saw her daughter as more of a burden than a joy. Betty had attempted suicide multiple times after giving birth to Mary. On one occasion, she took sleeping pills, but a neighbor discovered her in time. In Betty's mind, Mary was a regrettable mistake. However, the responsibility of motherhood still bound her to the child, causing their relationship to be filled with tension and trauma. This led to Mary's emotional neglect. The lack of affection and material resources left deep scars on Mary's soul from her early years. Mary began to show unusual signs. She refused to eat unless the food was placed in a corner under her chair, a behavior that no one could explain. In 1960, Betty Bell did something that silenced the whole family. She threw 3-year-old Mary from a first-floor window to the ground. Although Mary miraculously survived, the injuries on her body could not be hidden. Neighbors witnessed the incident, but no one dared intervene because Betty didn't allow it and explained that it was just an accident. On another occasion, Betty gave Mary sleeping pills disguised as sweet candy. Mary slept for many hours and only woke up when her aunt, Greta Kidd, came to check on her. Greta, a determined woman, testified in court years later, confirming that Betty intentionally harmed Mary to fabricate a tragic accident. Furthermore, Betty once sold Mary to a woman named Catherine who couldn't have children and showed signs of mental instability. In desperation, Greta searched all over Newcastle and finally found Mary and brought her back. But strangely, Betty refused to hand over her daughter to anyone, even though she clearly didn't want to care for her. Family members believed that Betty suffered from Munchausen syndrome, frequently making up illnesses for Mary to attract attention. Neighbors recalled the times Betty took Mary to the hospital, demanding doctors check because the girl showed signs of a serious illness. But all the tests found nothing unusual. In 1962, when Mary was just 5 years old, her mother took her along to entertain clients. Mary had to witness her mother working, and she herself was a victim of abuse. This led to emotional distortion in Mary's soul from a very young age. On the outside, Mary appeared like any other child, but inside, she was a mess. Teachers at school noted that Mary exhibited abnormal aggression, frequently attacking her classmates and showing sudden mood changes that were unpredictable. Gradually, psychological trauma built up. Mary became a withdrawn child, harboring intense anger. At Chalrood School, she often attacked classmates, both boys and girls. Teachers commented, "Mary is an unpredictable child. When she's happy, she can be very sweet, but when angry, Mary becomes frightening, like a completely different person." Mary also showed signs of severe anxiety. She often involuntarily urinated while sleeping and was mocked by her classmates. This only increased her isolation in the school environment. Mary's only friend was Norma Bell, a neighbor who was 2 years older than her. Although they shared the same last name, they were not related by blood. Norma was gentle and obedient, often getting involved in the strange, sometimes violent games Mary came up with. At the age of 10, Mary began to develop an unusual fascination with death. She often told eerie stories about accidents or deaths of others, with a pleased smile. Later, it was revealed that Mary had witnessed a friend die in an accident right before her eyes, and instead of being scared, she became fascinated by the sensation. On May 12, 1968, a 3-year-old boy in the Scotswood neighborhood had an accident falling from the roof of a 2-story house. Fortunately, the boy survived, but was severely injured. Mary Bell was seen standing nearby at the time of the incident. Other children reported that Mary had encouraged the boy to climb onto the roof and laughed when he slipped and fell. However, when asked, Mary just shook her head and said she was just watching. There was no concrete evidence to link Mary to the incident, and the matter was quickly forgotten. 3 days later, a woman went to the police station reporting that Mary had tried to strangle her daughter. The mother claimed Mary often exhibited violent and dangerous behavior with other children. However, the police did not take these allegations seriously. They dismissed them as just children playing. On May 25, 1968, just 1 day before her 11th birthday, Mary carried out her first horrifying act. A 4-year-old boy, Martin Brown, was found in an abandoned house. His body lay on the cold wooden floor, his face pale, with no signs of life. A local worker, John Hones, was the first to discover Martin's body. He tried to perform CPR, but was unsuccessful. Mary and her best friend, Norma Bell, were seen standing outside, silently watching. When John turned to call for help, Mary calmly said, "He got hurt in an accident." The police were quickly notified and arrived at the scene, but at that time, no one suspected Mary, as she was only 11 years old. The next day, Mary visited Martin's home. When his mother answered the door, Mary asked, "Can I see Martin one last time?" The mother, still grieving, slammed the door. It was only later that she realized the eerie nature of Mary's question. In the following days, Mary and Norma kept going near the crime scene, offering different explanations for Martin's death. They told the police that Martin had been bullied to death by a group of older children. However, there were no signs of abuse on the boy's body. The police also found a bottle of sleeping pills near Martin's body and suggested that the boy might have accidentally ingested them, leading to his death. But the autopsy report found no traces of drugs in his body. Initially, the police concluded that this was an accident, as they could not identify a clear motive or suspect. Meanwhile, Mary began to show strange signs. She drew a picture depicting Martin lying motionless with a bottle of sleeping pills beside him. Teachers noticed the oddness of the drawing, but did not think it was a confession. Mary continued to boast to her classmates at school that she knew how to make people stop breathing. The other children were scared, but no one dared report Mary. She gradually became a terrifying figure in the eyes of her friends. The investigators had no idea that, while they were concluding this was just an accident, Mary was already planning her next move. The silence of those around her allowed the darkness within her soul to grow stronger. On May 26, 1968, Mary attacked Norma Bell's younger sister. Her behavior became so uncontrollable that Norma's father had to intervene and kick Mary out of the house. Warnings from adults began to surface, but no one thought that Mary could be a real threat. Mary became increasingly violent and strange. In an argument with Norma, she attacked her friend by punching her in the face and head. After Norma cried and begged, Mary coldly said, "I'm ready to kill more kids if I want to." Not long after, Mary and Norma Bell caused a vandalism incident at the local kindergarten. The two sneaked in by crawling through the roof and destroyed everything inside. Books were thrown around, chairs and tables were overturned, and ink and paint were splattered everywhere. When leaving, Mary and Norma left 4 scrawled messages on the walls. The words contained strange spelling errors but had suspicious content, such as, "We killed Martin." This cryptic confession was dismissed by the police as just children's pranks. Had these messages been taken more seriously, another horrific crime might not have occurred. On July 31, 1968, Brian Howe, a 3-year-old boy, went missing after playing near his home. After hours of searching, Brian's body was found in an empty lot near where Martin Brown had died. The boy was strangled, and there were strange cuts on his body. The letter M was crudely carved into his skin with a razor blade. Mary and Norma returned to the scene after the crime. Mary used scissors to cut Brian's hair and inflicted additional injuries on his body. Norma tried to stop her, but Mary threatened her. This cold act revealed Mary's unusual obsession with controlling death. When the police arrived at the scene, they noticed key details such as the broken scissors and the carvings on the body as important clues. The police began to suspect that the messages left at the kindergarten were not pranks but actual confessions. The investigation expanded significantly, involving hundreds of investigators from various areas. Over 1,200 children in the region were questioned. Mary and Norma quickly became prime suspects due to their strange behavior. On August 1, 1968, Mary and Norma were summoned by the police. During questioning, Norma appeared nervous, shaky, and repeatedly changed her story. Mary, on the other hand, remained completely calm and focused, coldly staring directly at the investigators. Both admitted to playing with Brian on the day of his death, but denied seeing him later in the afternoon. Their accounts conflicted with other witness testimonies. The next day, Mary was interrogated for the second time. She claimed to have seen an 8-year-old local boy playing with Brian and using scissors to cut a cat's tail. She also said the boy had hit Brian multiple times. However, the police quickly verified that the boy was not at the scene on that day. Mary accurately described the broken scissors found at the crime scene, a detail only known to the police. Chief Inspector James Adoption immediately suspected Mary was the killer. Norma was questioned again. Under police pressure, she confessed that Mary enjoyed strangling children and damaging their bodies for her satisfaction. However, Norma repeatedly blamed Mary and denied her own direct involvement. When confronted, Mary remained calm. She neither denied nor admitted the accusations. When asked why she carved the letter M on Brian's body, she simply replied, "I wanted him to remember me. Besides, he struggled too much, so I had to use more force to strangle him." She also said, "I made Martin stop breathing the same way, but it was easier because he was younger." This explained why the police initially considered Martin's death an accident. Mary's small hands left no clear signs of violent force. This was effectively a confession, but as an 11-year-old, Mary likely did not fully grasp the gravity of her admission. Norma's family tried to defend her, claiming she had been manipulated by Mary and that Mary had exhibited violent tendencies before. However, this was insufficient to absolve Norma of responsibility. Once initial results emerged, news of the case spread quickly. Newspapers dubbed Mary Bell the devil with the face of an angel. But the big question remained, what turned an 11-year-old into a killer? the police collected additional statements from children who had been bullied by Mary. Some reported that Mary often talked about killing as a game and bragged about knowing how to make people stop breathing. During the psychological evaluation, Mary was asked how she felt watching Brian die. She responded briefly, without emotion, "I just wanted to know how it felt." Psychological experts concluded that Mary had a personality disorder and lacked empathy. However, they also noted that her violent and abusive childhood played a significant role in shaping her behavior. When the investigation concluded, Mary Bell was charged with manslaughter with aggravating circumstances. Norma was considered a minor accomplice due to Mary's influence over her. On December 17, 1968, Newcastle's courtroom was packed. The entire city wanted to know the fates of Mary Bell and Norma Bell. Mary, with her cold eyes, showed no signs of worry as she entered the courtroom. Norma, on the other hand, was trembling and avoided eye contact with everyone. Prosecutors presented the case with chilling details. From Martin Brown's death to Brian Howe's, all evidence pointed to Mary as the main perpetrator. However, they also highlighted her tragic and traumatic childhood. Norma was declared not guilty due to insufficient evidence proving her direct involvement in the murders. Mary was convicted of 2 counts of manslaughter. Psychological experts concluded she had a personality disorder characterized by a lack of remorse and an inability to comprehend the consequences of her actions. Ultimately, the judge sentenced Mary to life imprisonment. She would only be considered for release if authorities deemed her no longer a threat to society. However, no one believed that day would come. After the trial, Mary was sent to Red Bank Institution, a facility for children with antisocial behavior in Merseyside. There, Mary was the only female inmate. 2 years later, in 1970, Mary's case continued to shock the British press. Some journalists approached Mary at Red Bank, where she agreed to be interviewed. Mary even wrote a letter addressed to children, advising them not to do bad things. However, the public saw this as a publicity stunt to gain attention. In the following years, Mary experienced several transfers between institutions due to her age and incidents of harassment in prison. In May 1980, Mary, then 23 years old, was released after serving 12 years. However, her name and image remained the focus of intense scrutiny. Authorities decided to protect Mary's new identity so she could start a new life, which is why the name you hear in this video is an alias. In the years that followed, Mary lived a reclusive life, staying out of the public eye. But the question remains, can a cold-blooded killer truly change? Did she genuinely reform, or is she simply hiding, waiting for another opportunity? Mary Bell's story is not only a warning about the consequences of an abusive childhood, but also a lesson about the limits of the legal system and human psychology. To this day, the name Mary Bell remains a symbol of fear and horror. This video concludes here. Thank you for following this gripping story. If you found it interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss other fascinating stories.
In July 2000, in Tokyo, Japan, a British flight attendant, Lucy Blackman, suddenly disappeared after a mysterious date. From her case, the police uncovered a series of crimes involving rape, murder, and the dismemberment of victims. The number reached hundreds of victims, marking a large-scale sexual assault case unprecedented in its scope, a crime that many found hard to believe. What was the motive behind the perpetrator's actions? Was it a perverse game to satisfy desires, or a meticulously planned scheme? This chilling and suspenseful story will continue with surprising twists. Subscribe to our channel to explore it with us right now. Tokyo, the city that never sleeps. It is home to numerous bars, clubs, and luxury shopping centers, attracting the elite's attention. Amidst this glamour, in July 2000, Lucy Blackman, a 22-year-old British woman, vanished without a trace here. She was a hostess working in the Roppongi Entertainment District. The incident began on July 2nd, when Louise Phillips, a close friend and colleague of Lucy, could not contact her. Since her date with a client the previous evening, Lucy had not gone to work and seemed to have disappeared. This was unusual, as Lucy was very careful and punctual. She would always text or call if her plans changed. Louise decided to call Lucy's family in England to check if they had heard from her. When the family confirmed they also couldn't reach Lucy, Louise realized something serious had happened. Encouraged by Lucy's family, Louise reported Lucy's unusual disappearance to the Tokyo police on July 3, 2000. Initially, the police did not treat the case seriously, assuming Lucy might have gone somewhere on her own and would soon return. However, Louise and Lucy's family's persistence prompted them to take a closer look at the situation. Louise also provided detailed information about Lucy's last date with a man who claimed to be a wealthy businessman, describing Lucy's attire and behavior that evening. After receiving the report, the police began a preliminary investigation at the club where Lucy worked and tried to identify the man she met on the night of July 1. However, efforts were still superficial, as the police believed hostesses like Lucy had numerous relationships, and her disappearance for a few days was not unusual. Lucy's family immediately flew to Tokyo on July 4 to participate in the search and pressure the police to act more urgently. They began distributing missing person flyers and holding public press conferences to seek help from the community. Lucy's image quickly spread across international news, drawing widespread public attention. The situation escalated when British Prime Minister Tony Blair, on an official visit to Japan, met with Japanese Prime Minister Hiroshi Mori. On this occasion, Lucy's family also appealed to Tony Blair for assistance in pressuring the Japanese government to expedite the investigation. Under pressure from the Prime Minister, Tokyo police had to launch a deeper investigation into Lucy's disappearance. The investigation focused on the night she vanished and the last witnesses who saw her. The last time Lucy was seen was when she left the club with a wealthy man who introduced himself as Honda Yuji. Honda was a regular at Roppongi, well known among business circles but also a mysterious figure. This man had a sophisticated appearance, often seen with expensive cars, and enjoyed socializing with foreign hostesses. However, his true identity remained unclear. On July 1, 2000, Lucy told a colleague she had a date with a special client that evening. The man was a businessman, and this would be their first meeting. That night, Lucy left the club with the man, promising to return soon. However, after that evening, no one could contact her. Lucy had completely disappeared. As time passed, the worry of her family and friends grew. The police focused their search but faced many difficulties, as most entertainment areas lacked security cameras due to privacy concerns. Meanwhile, as media coverage intensified, the name Honda ceased to appear anywhere. Just as the investigation seemed to be hitting a dead end, new information emerged, providing a valuable lead. A hostess named Byung shared with the police that she had also met this man and experienced a situation possibly similar to Lucy's. After the meeting, Byung woke up with a sore body, unable to remember what had happened, and feeling as though she had been raped. Based on this information, the police began to suspect Lucy was not the only victim. They continued visiting other entertainment establishments in Tokyo and found 3 more women who had encountered this man. All of them reported similar experiences to Byung. One of the women was fortunate enough to record the name Yuji Honda, along with a phone number ending in 3301. This was the first lead the police could follow. The police traced the calls and found Lucy's phone number in the contact list of this number. Although this was a major breakthrough, the identity of the phone's owner remained unclear. Without accurate registration information, the police could only determine the last area where the phone signal was received. Narrowing down the search, they found the signal came from a luxury apartment building in Zushi, Kanagawa. The police acted immediately, requesting cooperation from the building management to provide information about anyone matching the descriptions given by witnesses. The security guard mentioned a wealthy businessman living there who matched the description. He owned a luxury car collection and frequently returned home late at night or early morning, maintaining a very mysterious lifestyle. That man was Yuji Honda. But after further investigations into the apartment's owner, the police discovered his real name was Joji Obara, and he owned a company called Plant Orihara. When researching the company, the police found no records of Plant Orihara. It appeared to be a ghost company, with no paperwork or operations but holding valuable assets. Around this time, the police discovered something very suspicious. Obara had purchased a saw, gloves, and cement from a supermarket near his house on July 4, just one day after Lucy's disappearance. The shop owner still had the receipt for the purchases. However, since the perpetrator had not been definitively identified and there were no traces of Lucy, this lead was temporarily set aside. The police continued gathering testimonies from other victims. A common detail emerged. When they were still conscious, the women remembered that Honda had taken them to a seaside resort in Miuratown. This area, located not far from Tokyo, became the next focus of the police investigation. Surveillance cameras revealed that on July 1st, Lucy had accompanied a man to a restaurant there. This aligned with the previous accounts of other victims. The police requested the resort's guest list and found the name Joji Obara. This was the first official appearance of his name in the investigation. When shown Obara's photograph, all the victims confirmed he was the man who had met with them and with Lucy. The investigation progressed rapidly with increasingly clear evidence. Finally, on October 11, 2000, 3 months after Lucy Blackman's disappearance, the police officially arrested Joji Obara on charges related to her disappearance, based on the evidence collected. At the time, Obara was 48 years old and a well-known businessman in financial circles. After Obara's arrest, the police immediately searched his luxury apartment in Tokyo and the resorts he frequently visited. They hoped to find critical evidence to shed light on Lucy Blackman's disappearance. In Obara's apartment, the police found a diary hidden in a desk drawer in his office. In it, Obara recorded his sickening goal to conquer 500 women. The pages were filled with distorted writings depicting women as toys for his satisfaction and power. Women are tools for me to conquer and assert my power. Their unconsciousness is the clearest proof that I control everything, one diary entry stated. Continuing the search, the police found a hidden room within Obara's bedroom. Inside, they discovered a massive video archive, thousands of tapes documenting physical abuse and rape. A total of 4,800 videotapes were collected. Among them, around 400 tapes were specially marked, clearly showing Obara's brutal acts against the victims. These videos not only captured the victims unconscious, but also detailed how Obara used anesthetic drugs to render them unconscious before committing his crimes. In some tapes, the police noticed Obara casually setting up cameras, adjusting lighting, and speaking directly to the camera as if creating his own art project. "This is my victory. Every woman is a trophy. No one can resist me," Obara declared in one tape. During interrogation, Obara denied all rape charges, claiming all acts were consensual and that he filmed them merely as keepsakes. The police suspected Obara used a strong anesthetic to render his victims unconscious. In the videos, they observed a bottle labeled chloroform on the table in many scenes. Chloroform is a chemical that suppresses the central nervous system, causing those who inhale it to lose consciousness, anesthetic effect. It was highly likely that Obara used the anesthetic, applying it to a cloth and pressing it against the victims' faces, quickly rendering them unconscious. Numerous chloroform-soaked cloths were found piled in a large trash bin behind his house. Confronted with irrefutable evidence, Obara continued to deny all wrongdoing, claiming everything was a misunderstanding and that he was innocent. However, with the undeniable evidence from the tapes, his denial of guilt was meaningless. The biggest challenge for the police was that they could not find any video featuring Lucy Blackman. Despite numerous tapes documenting other victims, there was no trace of Lucy among the collected videos. The police launched a large-scale search around Obara's residence, hoping to find Lucy's body. 7 months after Lucy's disappearance, on February 9, 2001, police discovered a heavily decomposed body in a cave in Kanagawa Prefecture, about 50 kilometers from Obara's home. The body had been dismembered and placed in separate bags. Despite the severe decomposition, DNA confirmed the victim's identity as Lucy Blackman. At this point, the police recalled a similar case with many parallels to Lucy's. It was the case of Karita Ridgway, an Australian woman who also worked as a hostess in Tokyo. In 1992, Karita's family received a call from a Japanese hospital, informing them that she had been hospitalized due to food poisoning and was in critical condition. Karita passed away shortly after from food poisoning. No investigation was conducted at the time, but her family suspected something was amiss about her death. A portion of Karida's liver had been preserved as a medical sample. Thanks to her family's persistence, this liver sample was finally tested by Japanese police after Lucy Blackman's death, hoping to find links to Obara. The analysis revealed the presence of chloroform in Karida's liver, a powerful anesthetic that can be fatal if overdosed. The investigation revealed that Obara had raped and killed not only Lucy and Karida, but also many other victims. The number of victims, based on Obara's videotapes, could reach 400, with many unwilling to report the crimes or having left Japan. After Joji Obara's arrest, Japanese police called on sexual assault victims of Obara to come forward and provide more information. However, this faced many challenges. Many victims, particularly foreigners, were reluctant to report the crimes due to fear of stigma or the complex legal procedures in Japan. Others had left the country, making them unreachable by the police, or had been murdered by Obara, leaving them unable to come forward. In reality, many similar cases had occurred in the past, but were not fully investigated or were forgotten. This sparked public criticism of the Japanese legal system's lack of decisive action in handling sexual assault cases. Some victims, after seeing Lucy Blackman's case publicly exposed, decided to cooperate with the police. However, their numbers were insufficient to uncover the full scale of Obara's crimes. The public called this one of the most horrifying sexual assault cases in Japan's history, not only because of the number of victims, but also due to the complexity of the investigation and trial process. The investigation lasted for years, and it wasn't until 2007 that Joji Obara was brought to trial in Tokyo. In court, Obara was charged with raping and murdering multiple women, including Karida Ridgway. However, in Lucy Blackman's case, Obara was not convicted due to a lack of direct evidence. Lucy's family was deeply disappointed by the verdict. They hoped Lucy's death would not be in vain and decided to appeal to have the case retried. In 2008, under public pressure and the persistence of the Blackman family, Lucy's case was reopened. In the new trial, the court determined that circumstantial evidence, including witness testimonies and purchase receipts, was sufficient to convict Obara. On December 16, 2008, Joji Obara was sentenced to life imprisonment for aggravated rape and the murders of multiple women, including Karida Ridgway and Lucy Blackman. Nevertheless, Obara's lawyer attempted to reduce the sentence by offering financial compensation to the Blackman family. A sum of 770 million yen was proposed as compensation and reconciliation. Lucy's family immediately rejected the offer, stating that no amount of money could compensate for their daughter's death. They insisted that justice could not be bought with money. Ultimately, the sentence for Joji Obara became a significant lesson in not tolerating sexual crimes. The public strongly condemned the crimes and demanded that authorities improve their handling of similar cases in the future. The final verdict not only brought justice to the victims, but also exposed the darker aspects of society and the legal system, prompting public calls for major reforms. This video ends here. Thank you for following this gripping story. If you found this video engaging, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to catch more exciting stories.